way of looking at things in sort of, you know, it's not a simple question, but the way of looking at it sort of with the two polar opposites. Because when you actually look at the patronage of the period, quite a lot of Tories are building Palladian villas. It's not just a Whig house style. It starts as the Whig house style, and then they perfect it, and then everybody basically does it. So I think initially it was a political gesture, and it was a gesture of getting them back to Augustan Rome. Effectively what they do is this. I always get a bit anal about this. It's talking to my counsellor, who is not a counsellor, but he's a friend of mine who's like a counsellor. Here we are with the Whigs, and we're going to create this house style, and this house style has got to be Augustan, effectively. So, you know, we've got to get back there. But, you know, we don't really know what's there. And we've been on a grand tour, but, you know, we've been duped by people, Kent being one of them, sold us lots of bronzes that are all fakes. He did that. And so the best way to do it is via Palladio. So you do Palladio, who, of course, tries to recreate neoclassically the past. And then we're here, so we do Palladio, and then we think, right, well, Palladio's version of the antique is okay for us, and we then can connect with Augustan Rome, and we then can make this political gesture. That becomes our house style. Now, what's interesting is, again, if you read the text, this is something I just bang into the heads of my students all the time. You can't just read Tim Mowl and think about what he says, unless you're going to disagree with him or challenge him. But what you can do is you can read the texts. And, of course, the text to read is Shaftesbury, Lord Shaftesbury, who's effectively the founder of the Whig Party. And you read his characteristics, and you find out what he says. And all he says is that there should be a resurgence in the arts and the sciences. We are looking for a new spirit in the arts and sciences. But he doesn't say what style it should be. He never, ever suggests a style. What he's suggesting is we need to go back to the past to create this new halcyon period. And the Whigs just latch onto Palladio, and then politically they push it through. But by the 1725, 1726, quite a lot of Tories are doing it. The Tories, of course, have been doing Baroque architecture before 1714 and the Hanoverian accession, but they then, second generation, start doing it. You know. Yes, yeah, very good. Yes, it's very like that. And again, you've got to think of, the generations are really important, I think, because Summerson wrote a brilliant essay long ago about the amount of houses that were being built in the 1720s and 30s. So you'd had this old generation of Baroque houses, and then you get the 1714 succession, and then they all start building houses again, so you get all these Palladian villas. And then you get to about the end of the 1740s, and you get the second generation again coming in, and they think, oh, God, these Palladian villas, you know, they're dark, and they're not fit for our world. They're not Italian for temperature. So you then start to get a modification of them by canted bays to bring in the country and so on. And then you get brilliant houses like this, where you get a neoclassicism that's based on archaeology. So I'm sort of moving around a bit.
For example, originally the plan was to build a Palladian house.
Yeah.
And then what was built.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that Burlington's breakdown in 1733?
Three. I think that's the key to everything that happened. In the 1730s, we started going eclectic. I was interested at Esher. There is the Kent drawing, of course, for a great Palladian house, like you said, on the ridge. But then Kent says, no, hang about, I'm not going to have the Wainfleet Tower as just an eye-catcher. It's going to be the house itself. And I think that's probably one of the most important drawings of the 1730s, because it shows the two ways, and he goes this way. And he makes the garden go that way. Otherwise, it could have been like Chiswick. So, yeah. So you live in Esher, do you? Yeah. Do you live in one of those big houses by the Wainfleet Tower? Do you? Do you? Go on, you do, don't you? What are you doing for supper? Is there a good restaurant here? Yeah? Tell me more about Esher. David, are you still all right? Any other questions? Another question. Another question? Lady over here. Lady, what's your name? Charlotte. Yeah. Oh, right, yes.
Hello. I'd always understood William Kent in terms of what he was doing in gardens a little bit more than in terms of his involvement with theatre, because he was a theatre designer. Yeah. You haven't really touched on that.
I haven't, have I?
Can you touch on it a little bit more?
I could do.
How significant? Do you not think?
I think yes. I think he is very, very theatrical. I was asked when I did the book. Did you all hear the question, by the way? Yeah. This interest in theatre. I was asked when I'd finished the book to talk about an episode in Kent's life that really suggested the mind of the man. And interestingly, I chose a theatrical occasion, which happened to be a marriage in the Royal Chapel at Kensington, because he had done the designs for the interior of the chapel for this extraordinary royal wedding, where the groom didn't have a neck and came in looking as though he had no neck, and it was really quite dangerous and disaster. I won't go on about it, it's the beginning of the book. And they said, you know, do something quite salacious and odd and weird. And so I had to then talk about, you know, the first night in bed and everything. You know what publishers are like. But he did the designs for the interior of the chapel for that wedding. And he designed them almost as if they were a theatre set. And I think I wrote about it and said something like it was a cross between sort of John Piper's sets for opera and sort of Versace fabrics, because it was all wonderful fabrics hanging down. And a lot of his book illustrations are quite theatrical in their presentation.
So did he not do it? He didn't do any theatre designs or anything like that. I don't know why. I sort of thought he...
Well, he did triumphal arch designs for theatrical ceremonials, but in terms of theatre, not as far as I know. But there is a real theatricality to him, which I think you're right to concentrate on. And if I go back to the most interesting of the drawings, which is the Queen Caroline as the shepherdess, there is a sort of almost like an amphitheatre behind them with that garden building, almost as if this is a stage set.
That's what they look like to me.
Exactly. And I think that, again, his garden buildings, they're always have wings, almost like flats of trees, these deciduous.
It's quite formulaic in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. But then, of course, that's going back to French design for formal gardens, which are like flats receding in perspective. And remember what Walpole said about him, talking about this contour, easy flow, but then the deception of the perception, the perspective deception, which of course you get in theatre design. So yeah, interesting question. Yeah, there's a lady here. Have you got one, or is that just nothing on it? There's nothing on it. There's nothing on it. I think we've probably got time for just one more, if there is one more. If there isn't one more, then I think it's down the pub, isn't it? Esher High Street must have some good pubs. They look a bit pucker to me. I'm a Bristol boy, you know, from the rough side of Bristol. Any more questions? No, I think we're okay, David.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Tim.
Been a real pleasure.
You'll be hearing from us again for the next year. We'll be planning the next annual event. We're looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.